Good Wednesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller. This is Real Talk with Keith Smith on the I Love CVille Network, and it's very great to connect with you on a fall Wednesday morning in downtown Charlottesville. I've been super pumped for today's program. For a few weeks, I've tried to get the guest on today's show on the program. He is just a stand-up guy, a stand-up agent, a stand-up broker, stand-up realtor. Tim Carson is in the house. He has nearly 40 years in this business, and not only is he an evangelist of real estate and being a realtor, but he's an evangelist of training people, getting people up to speed in the business, and a champion of Charlottesville and Albemarle County, lacrosse, small business, and in Central Virginia. Judah Wickhauer is our director. If we can go to the studio camera and welcome Keith Smith and Tim Carson to the program. And boys, I am so excited for this show. I sincerely mean that.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here.
It's great to have you. Keith, I know you're excited as well.
Yes, there's a reason why we're calling these Wednesday series Lessons from Legends. And you're a legend. And we were, just before the mics got hot, I forgot, we've been doing this together for a long time. One of the first homes that I built over at a development I did, oh my God, in 97, 98, you brought the buyer.
I did.
And you still came here to talk to me. Look at that. Huh?
Yes. Hey, you're a New Yorker. I grew up with them.
How did the process go? Were they happy at least?
It was good, and you did a good job, and I liked how you were open to their needs, but you held tight to your standards.
There you go.
The third commercial deal I ever did personally, ever, in the history of our portfolio. This man representing the seller. I was representing myself, and I will be very straightforward, very young at my time then in real estate. And Tim and his, I believe he's still your assistant, Jeff Cheers.
Yes.
You guys were class, man.
Thank you.
You took the deal from start to finish. There were no roadblocks. You did what a deal maker was supposed to do: transparency, communication, and keep the deal moving forward 2 steps every day. I was very impressed with your professionalism throughout that entire experience.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to hear that. Yeah, well, you were great to work with because it's really easy for a broker to work with somebody who's direct and tells you what they want and need.
Oh, God, isn't that a rarity, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So the 4 or 5 people who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself real quick, where you're from? I know everybody said you've been here for 37 years, but take a few seconds and give yourself a plug.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in North Garden. My father came down from Long Island when they moved to Sperry Marine Plant. He was an engineer, did the periscopes. That big tower out there at Northrop Grumman, I remember he built that when I was a kid. And then they were big volunteers in the community. Dad was a Boy Scout leader. He helped start the fire department. He was a Rotary Club. Mom was a 4-H leader. And so I came from a family of volunteerism and serving the community. And I went to Albemarle High School and then went to school for a little bit. And I was telling you, my grandmother died when I was young and left me a little teeny bit enough money from Fire Island sale to go into real estate. I went into real estate at 8 years old. That's why I look young still, hopefully. And then started. So I was in real estate before the internet, before you could fax.
You had a book, right?
We had a book. Actually, we would do Western Union deals. Like if you had to make a deal, you'd send a Western Union telegram. We didn't have MLS, any of that stuff. And so it was interesting. Jeff Gaffney is always telling me I'm the dinosaur that evolved. And so I guess I am, I don't know, but I still love it. And then, I went to work with Jim Manley. He was a big time, he was a 1972 Virginia Realtors Association Salesperson of the Year, an AT&T guy, and a hard-charging, tough dude from West Virginia. And he and I clicked immediately. I was sort of like his golden boy, but I just did everything he asked me to do. I remember my first year, I was making all the deals, leading the sales and stuff, and everybody in the office was like, "What are you doing? You got special treatment." I'm like, no, he actually has a book, and it tells you what to do, and I did those things, and they work.
It's amazing how you just do what you're supposed to do.
I just did it, and then when I had trouble, I went to him. So I think that's the biggest key in getting in real estate is having a mentor, and enthusiasm, and energy. And so then
do you see that a lot now?
I see the enthusiasm, but I don't see people working out like the foundational needs of their character to be the best they can be, sort of.
So one of the things that excited me about today is we've been in this almost the same amount of time on that end of it, and also you do a little bit of commercial, you do a little bit of residential, so you're very well-rounded in that.
And property management.
And property management.
And land.
And land. Anything else?
Yeah,
Is that it?
I do some. I've got a new twist.
Any magic tricks or anything?
I do project management now of apartment renovations for a
Really?
fee. Yeah, I'm
You're
now
just a glutton
EPA
for
approved for lead-based paint renovations.
Really? Look at you, man. I'm learning stuff sitting here talking to you.
Leonard Kaysen, very nice family, the Carsons. I've known them my entire life. Vanessa Parkhill in Earlysville is giving you big-time props right now. Ivy Haynes watching the program. I see a boatload of Real Estate 3 watching the show. Ray Cadell watching the program right now. Stephanie Wells Rhodes watching the program right now.
Oh,
and
wow.
Stephanie's leaving some comments. I can remember at Intrastate driving the WDI reports and hand delivering them to all the local attorneys back in the day.
Yeah.
She's watching the Intrastate family right there.
Yep. And then just long story short, so I ended up going with Jim Manley, and I was with him 24 years, and then he got cancer. I ran his company. We remodeled the building. Betty Duncan, Jimmy Duncan's mother, was an integral part of that.
Wow.
And then when he died, Jim Manley had given me first right of refusal, but he had told me before he died, Tim, no matter what you do, don't own a company, because you're too good at what you do with serving people and you'll make more money. So I didn't want to buy it. And then Judy Savage, I was on the board of directors with her, and she came to me and said, Tim, I would like you to be my managing broker. And so I went over there for 3 years, and that was really fun. She's an amazing lady, and I was always really tight with her. And that company had a lot of top producers like Marjorie Adams and different people, and it was fun. And then she decided to retire, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do exactly, but I felt I had a skill that I could help mentor, manage, train, but I didn't want to run an office. So I remember I talked to Steve McLean. God, that's one to mention him, because he was one of the people I looked to in the business that I admired so much, and prayers and blessings for his family.
Amen.
Since he passed. But then, I kind of had narrowed down to a couple companies, him, and then Jeff Gaffney I was on the board with, and he came to me and said, come over here, be vice president, and then we've got a franchise, and you run a Century 21, a RE/MAX, and I have all this stuff could help you with. And so I went over there, been there 10 years, and it's been a blessing because I get to work with Pat Whithelm, who is one of the most amazing people ever in real estate.
10 years with Real Estate 3.
And T. Lee Jennifer is really amazing trainer.
Pat's a pistol, isn't she?
She's amazing.
Yeah.
And I love going in there and giving her a hard time. And then Jeff's the CEO, I'm vice president. And when I got over there, I was charged to help them understand how to use the Better Homes and Gardens franchise. And then I was charged with how to get out of it when we had an opportunity, because we figured out that we could provide some of the services that franchise provided, and we were able to give our agents a better deal. Now, I will say that I have a great respect for both the Keller Williams and RE/MAX franchises. They're really a great business model, and I love them, and I also could have seen myself working there. And
Well, thank you for saying
that. Along with Nest, I like Nest and some of the other companies. But anyway,
You got them all watching.
Yeah, long story short is it was a perfect fit for me because I can make a difference with the company. I can sell. And I guess what Jeff said is they wanted a General Patton to be in the field. So, since I went over there, Jeff went back into selling. And he's really amazing guy. And I love Jeff. And we work together really well. We both are very competitive, and we help each other. So that's kind of my deal. I started doing investment properties. That's what I became specialized in. My mentor said, do residential. I grew up on a farm, 230 acres, so I learned land. I also had a certification in the 90s to sell businesses, and then I also was a HUD agent. I was a short sale agent. I was a foreclosure agent with
This guy's great.
somebody else. And so I did all those. I was also one of the relo agents for State Farm. So I've done all those things, and kind of where I also represented one builder for 10 or 12 years. So
You're well-rounded.
I have a lot of investors. So 8 years ago, I helped start the property management. And so to answer your question now, what I do now is I had so many investors bought property. They're like, we want you to manage them. I'm like, well, okay. Well, I'd done it. So now I manage 125 rented units that are a mixture of commercial and small commercial, and mostly what I focus on is multifamily. Like a lady called me yesterday, Tim, please take my 8 units. So I'm really good at taking, most people don't sell rental properties unless they have a financial need, or they're exhausted by them, or they haven't kept them up to the market standards. So I'm really good at that. So that's kind of where we're at. And I have a team of 4 guys, Jack Crocker, Jeff Cheers, Ted Wooten, and Peter Garland, who are my assistants. They work just for me. And our business model is a little different. I know Keller Williams, you got like the team leader and all that. Well, it's my circus and they're my monkeys. I'm it. Like when people come to me, they get me, and they don't get those guys, even though two of them are agents.
Realtors, yeah.
So that's
Jack's a realtor.
Yeah, and he came to me from Judy's team, and so that's kind of who I am. I just love this. I just breathe it. I love it. I love helping people, and that's kind of where I'm at.
The most successful people in our industry, that's exactly what they say. It's all about the love, and they love to do it. So I tried to keep a bunch of notes through this because there was a lot to dive into.
His page is blowing up right now.
But I kind of want to step back for a second. We're in the process of, and probably going to, with all this pending stuff that's happening in our industry, in the middle of an O-shift moment, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
We are going to be different the way we do business 12, 24 months from now than we have in the past. So what's the big difference between when you started with, I think it was a chisel, you said, right? You started with a chisel, write contracts, and all that stuff on a tablet, to now. What's the biggest change, and what are you seeing happening down in the future that's going to deeply impact how we do business?
So I think one thing hasn't changed, and I think the biggest issue with agents is their distractions. They have to be focused. And so agents, as soon as they get busy, they stop prospecting. So in my mind, that's not going to change. If anything, that's going to become more relevant. And so, I think that agents need to, I have a focus of 4 things that I should be doing every day, and I have them written down, and that's what I look at every morning. That's listing presentations, showing homes to qualified buyers, closing deals, and writing contracts. So if I'm not doing those 4 things, I'm not really doing anything. Matter of fact, Jack gets irritated with me a lot, but when I was with Judy Savage, I was her managing broker. He came in as a new agent, and I helped him 3 or 4 months. And he would come in every Friday. He's like, I said, well, what did you do this week? And he'd say, well, I did this, I did this, I did that, and I did that. I'm like, did you get a listing? No. Did you make a sale? No. I said, well, you didn't do anything.
So if you can tag Michael Guthrie at 5:30 in the morning, these 3 things show up, and these came from Michael. Be professional, be trustworthy, and be caring. That's what I strive to do every day, is be a pro.
Yep.
Be trustworthy and care about what other people want. And I think if you focus on those 3 things, no matter what the market is, you'll do well and you will succeed. But we're about ready to go through a seismic shift here.
I agree with you.
And do you think our agent pool is ready for that?
No.
So how can we help them?
Characterize the seismic shift first.
I think that, so ever since I've been in business, and even during the last recession when I was on the board, we brought all the agents in to try to get their feedback so we could, as an association, be productive to them. And even then, there was 100 agents who did 84% of the volume. Yeah. So what we're finding, from what I've read and what I see, is the percentage of agents that do most of the volume is getting smaller and smaller.
It's going from 10 to 5%.
And maybe down to 2%.
Tommy Brannick used to say in 2008, 10% of the agents do 90% of the business. And that 10% number is shrinking.
Right.
And it's shrinking quickly.
Right. I agree with you. And I think, so that's why I made the shift a couple years ago to bring in a couple of assistants so that I could work more with more people myself. Because they don't come.
Most agents struggle with that, right? Because
they do.
As a recovering developer and builder, I love to delegate, right? Because you can't build 600 houses without having multiple people do multiple things and then trust them. So that's a huge shift for an agent.
Well, and I also think one of the big problems that agents have is they get distracted. So I'm big into trying to build a better mousetrap. But what I do is I do that during non-productive time. Like Jerry and I were talking about it. I might sit down at night from 10 to midnight and study 7 different CRMs, or I have a closing contact manager that searches my email and then finds a deal and then pulls all the emails and attachments into one file. It takes me 3 minutes, and finding things that help you be streamlined and more efficient. Being efficient, not wasting time, and spending most of your time with people. My mentor used to say, don't get dressed up and never leave home. So I taught my daughter, go to goal. You have to go to goal.
She was a standout at Old Dominion University, played lacrosse, his daughter.
Scored 260 goals at
Now she's a coach.
She made honorable mention All-American, Old Dominion, led him in NCAAs.
That's right.
10 years, she was on a all-decade team for the Atlantic Sun. Yeah, she's coaching in Innsmouth, Suffolk. But I taught her go to goal. So that's the problem. My mentor used to be like, go to goal. And I think one of my funniest stories ever, My second month, I was with Jim Manley. He had a computer up on in a box. I'm like, what's that up there? He's like, well, that's the best computer you can get. Century 21, they told us to buy it. It cost me $6,000. He's like, how does it work? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, can I learn? So I took it down, put all the disk in. I found a program on there that did investment analysis, and then it did like mailings. So I go down and buy all the tax records from the city and bring them back, and I pay somebody 5 cents a name to put them all in the damn thing because you couldn't export the data. And then I started printing letters. Well, I get like 100, 200 letters, and his wonderful wife, Douglas Manley, who's passed away, she was amazing. She looked at my letter and said, you can't send that, it's got a typo. And I'm like, oh, because I am a little fast and impatient, and I won the 6th grade spelling bee. I still spell at that level. But long story short is, I'm like, okay, so Jim Manley walks in there, he's like, well, send it out, go to goal. The hell with that, because like maybe a PhD in English won't buy from Tim. Everybody else will. And so I think that's the key, is people wait to get too perfect. You just got to do it. Just get out there.
Never let good get in the way of perfect.
Yeah.
Perfection is the enemy of profitability and productivity.
Thank you.
But are you, this is something that I'm not seeing, and I'd love to get your read on it, and just kind of honing back in on this mentorship and this, this apprenticeship or helping young agents learn. I know there's classes and I know all this stuff, but I know when I got into it, there was always people. Tom Marachi is a name that pops up that help mentoring and coaching. I have Yonna who mentors and coaches me like for every 30 seconds, but for very good reason. So are you starting to see that shift happen to that model again, where people are trying to help coach and mentor other agents?
I see it, but also what I think the key ingredient there is is the agent coachable. It's no different than a player. Like when my daughter made like ESPN's top 10 in high school, and we went and played in a national tournament during the women's Final Four, and I was on the sideline with like 70 coaches. I went up to the Loyola coach, Jen Adams, who was like MVP for Maryland. I was like, what's the one thing you're looking for in a high school athlete? She said, well, I like them to play more than one sport, but I want to see what they do when they get beat. What if they got a mistake? So like, I think the biggest issue with these younger agents, and I'm going to point two of them out that are like amazing at this, is Josh Tracy.
He's watching.
Mozzie, and Ivy Haynes, all of them, they're not willing to like just take an answer. They're going to like ask the answer, and then they're going to come to you and say, I need the help. Josh will text me, well, I saw you
at Vivace
on a Thursday night. He messaged me and said, I got this weird deal. And I said, well, let's get a beer and have kill two birds with one stone. And we worked out a deal for him. So I think the mentorship is, first of all, it has to be somebody that's actually a mentor, right? Because
or have the ability to do
Thank you. And has knowledge and experience. But then that person has to want to be mentored. As I've just seen too many people that are arrogant.
I am finding the younger agents that are coming into this market. You mentioned Ivy Haynes, prime example.
Awesome lady.
Wants to learn, wants to be mentored, wants to be coached, wants to be, hey, how can we do this better? How can we take care of? And those will be that. I just took a look real quickly from year to date at the stats of volume. So from 5 million and up, right, there was 307 agents that sold 5 million and up, and then when you start getting to the 10 million number, which is a big number, it is like less than 100. Excuse me, 100. 10 million is 113 out of what? 1,300 realtors.
Yes.
So whatever that percentage.
Less than 10%.
Whatever that percent. Well, it's less than.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Less than 10%. So. One would consider, 5 million is kind of, if you're not making 5 million in sales, it's pretty hard to make a living at this business. 10 million up, you're doing well on that end of it. So there's only 113 that are making, at the moment, 10 million and up.
And they also got to think outside the box, because like I do a lot of off-market deals.
Sure.
And also like I've been known.
Do you post them?
Huh?
Do you do them as comps only in the MLS?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I have one with UVA right now that's like a $5.5 million commercial deal that they're buying.
Well, commercial's a different story.
Yeah. But also, part of that whole thing with being mentored is
20 and million up is only 32.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah. I think the mentor thing though is the person that you're going to be receiving that knowledge from, are they available to you? So, that's why like what you do in your company, you've got some really unique people in your company. We've got unique people in our company. So, if Josh has a question, he might go to Pat, even though we all know it. He might go to her over a legal thing. He might go to Teely over something, or go to me. But then he's got 4 of us that are available, and the same thing with you and your wife, and then some other people, Donna and other people. So, but
Olga's watching in Puerto Rico.
I love Olga.
She's giving you guys some props right now. She says, Pat is amazing lady. She gives Tim props. Hello, Tim. You're getting love right now from Jimmy Gilbert, Mary Beth Winslow, Jeff Gaffney watching the program right now. I'm seeing 7 different real estate firms on the show. Keith just gave a fantastic statistic. 20 million and up in sales volume, 32 agents. He just looked it up right there. That's 2.5% of the car roster. 2.5% of the car roster.
As of today.
As of today is doing 20 million and up. Viewers and listeners, you can ask questions to Tim and Keith. You can give them props by putting it in the feed. John Blair watching the show right now. Questions are coming in. Keith, jump in and I'll get to the questions in moments.
So I'm going to ask you the question that everybody's been asking, and we've been talking about this. It's the I word, right?
I feel you.
Inventory, right? So we've got crystal balls here. For some reason, we always forget to set them up. So, but what is your crystal ball telling you on where inventory's going to track in 2024? Because look, let's face it, 2023 is just going to kind of creep along, right? It's going to be what it is. And 2024 might be somewhat of a different year depending on rates. So what is your crystal ball saying for inventory and the market for 2024?
I think it's going to be similar.
Me too.
Same as 23.
Similar. Yeah. I think the key is you go off market and you try to make more deals. Now, if you're
for those who don't understand off market, who's watching it, I mean, it's self-explanatory, but take a second and explain the difference between on market and off market.
Well, I'll give you a good example. I've gone into the tax records recently and scraped 1,000 names and addresses off the records and sent out actual snail mail to people.
Dude, this is no BS, for a number of our clients. I have the entire database for all of Glenmore, literally on that computer right there, in a file. The entire snail mail mailing addresses for Bel Air, Ednam Force, and Farmington, sitting in a file right there for clients. I have the Ivy Road corridor from the Boar's Head to Duners, sitting in a file right there. And anytime they want to contact us and they want to do direct mail to these people, happy to do it for you. I provide that service. No problem at all.
See, and that works.
So my God, it works.
So back to snail.
That works.
Right? Yonna, and we've been doing this forever, and
Me
this
too.
is just old
20
school.
years.
Writing handwritten notes to people. Unbelievable. It's Christmas, right? So any agent out there that's listening, and if you've got a 10-person database or a 100-person or a 1,000-person database, pick your top 20, 30, whatever it is, and write them handwritten notes, you will get a deal.
Right.
Guarantee it.
Absolutely.
And, all this other junk on this phone,
Yep.
go back to old school, write a note, send it to them.
Totally.
It's amazing how many phone calls you get back. Thank you. It was
Well,
like
and you know what
Christmas.
else? You know how many times that I have dropped the ball a little bit because I've been so busy. I didn't do something like to get a lead information to somebody, but still I keep track of it. And then I might have my assistant call up, or I'll call him and say, hey, you know what? We didn't get that to you, but are you still interested? So also, expired listings. Focusing on, I sold a trailer park in Elkton. It was off market because the guy already had one little trailer park, which that was an interesting thing during pandemic. I sold one little 7-unit trailer park, and we converted them all to mini little houses and put Section 8 people and took trailer rents from $700 to $1,250 a month. So there's a lot of stuff you can do that's cool, but so that kind of stuff, you could actually there's this thing you drive with the wheels. You get in that and you drive around.
It's kind of like this is a phone too, right?
Right. It's not as productive, but you don't just sit in the office and be like, oh wow, I wish I had business. Go out and find a business. Go out and see what's happening.
So I think our inventory crunch, and I've been saying it for quite some time, is 5 to 10 years out. And I think we're closer to 10 years out from inventory flipping, only because we got so many units to make up.
Right.
And so many people at sub 4%. 80% of homeowners have an interest rate of 4% or below.
Yeah, I agree.
80%. That is a fact. Yeah. Look it up, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. 80%, 4% or below. Why would these folks give up that financing vehicle?
Right.
And the largest buying cohort is coming in.
Yeah.
170 million of them. You and I, because I think we're about in the same age group, right?
Yes.
Is getting smaller. We're about 60 million, and each year we get a little bit less.
Right.
So I just think we're going to be at a inventory crunch. The second question, price is going to go down next year?
No.
Yeah.
And I also think some of these people, the reason that I could show them why they should do that is I could run a 5-year cash flow projection on the home they're in as
You're
a
talking
rental.
sell their house and give up that financing vehicle?
No.
What are you talking?
Rent their house if
Yeah,
they
yeah.
haven't buy a
There you go.
second home.
Dude,
I can do a 5-year cash flow projection and show people like 15-20% return after
I've said
tax.
there's an econ PhD UVA professor that literally watches our shows every single day and sends direct messages to me that are 3,000 word
Yep.
analysis white papers saying the next trend that's going to happen is homeowners with massive stacks of equity and financing vehicles that are sub 4% not selling their houses, renting their houses instead, and then taking advantage of the equity to buy the next house.
Absolutely. And then the second key component of that is to set yourself a calendar reminder, because if you live in your house under the current tax law 2 of the last 5 years, you can sell it as a principal residence. So therefore, one of the things you could do is do that, and then when you're still in that timeline where you could go back and sell that house and not pay capital gains, you also could possibly make sure you get a loan on the new property where you can recast the loan so that then you can take the equity, move it, and you can reduce your payments.
You must be reading his DMs to me. That's literally
I'm
what.
not.
No, I know you're not, but I know 100% you're not. That's literally what this PhD just said.
Oh, well,
He's literally saying that's the next trend.
I'm a PFA, plucked from air.
You got street smarts. What you got? You got street smarts.
So I've been doing this since '87. When did you start?
85.
85.
Interest rates were 13. My first deal, 13.
My first,
Sorry.
I have to say this because I have to. My first house was 18% that I bought.
I did one of those.
So, but every real estate market is different. We've been through enough of them.
Yes, sir.
Right? But this one is, but they all have some similarities to it, right? Unemployment, inflation, so forth, supply and demand. But we've never been in a situation where there's these homes that will not come on the market for 3% or are not going to come on the market for a long time. And we've never really been in a situation where this equity has exploded
Yes.
in so many years. So those two factors, and plus the normal cycle of not houses getting built and so forth, so on. I mean, we're in a pretty good business for the next 5 to 10 years, if
Yep.
not more than that. But what thing, or 2 things, or 3 things, whatever you think is appropriate, has to happen to open this log jam, in your opinion?
Well, I could pick one thing, but they would never do it. And that would be that, like, VDOT and Albemarle County should get together, and they should together pick up areas in the urban ring and create a new zoning guideline that allows for rural development. And they should do it based on the roads and the infrastructure as far as the schools and stuff. And they could just go and do 1.5 acre lots. They could even give tax credits for like environmental septics and things like that. And they could explode with a zillion rural area properties. This is what people want. That's just my view.
I don't think
Just
that's going to happen.
Call me crazy.
The political capital's not there for that.
I know it won't,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
what should happen.
So there's this bridge in Brooklyn. I got a really good deal on it.
Thank
You're
you.
interested in
Thank
buying
you.
it?
But I know that won't happen. So yeah, I think
They
that,
won't expand to 5%.
No,
It's not
they
gonna
won't.
happen.
No,
They straight up said in the last board of
I know it.
supervisor meeting it was not going to happen.
I know it, but that's what
Yeah.
should happen.
Yeah.
And I could tell you a story about how that's damaged people with the ruling back in the 80s where you can only divide your land 5 times in your lifetime and
That's
a lot
exactly
smaller
right.
than 21 acres. And that's what created the problem. So anyway, I think that the real problem is that people are tired of they have to be forced to live in a townhome too. So that's why you're seeing like Zions and other areas explode. So I think you're going to continue to see other counties, exploding that are.
How about if rates drop?
I got it.
What happens if rates drop?
Oh, I
Zillow
think-
said Zillow did a survey of tens of thousands of American homeowners, and the survey indicated
Yeah.
that rates would have to fall between 5% and 5.5% for people to get out of the golden handcuffs effect, which is all of us that have the sub 4%
Right.
financing vehicle.
I think it's closer to 6%.
Yeah.
But
That's what Zillow says. What do you think would happen in that scenario?
I think we'd get back into more of a normal market, like an even market. I also think that we can't think too long term because as you've been in business forever, we have a presidential election year coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And we really don't know what's going to happen.
Sure.
And so I think that's going to affect things, and there's a lot of manipulation that goes on at that level.
I'll do a little pushback on the outside counties.
Yeah.
These rural jurisdictions are not approving projects.
Right.
So, the Greene County, we talked on Monday about that, is kind of in a catbird seat because they got about 1,800 lots, and
Right.
there's another project with another 500. So they probably could produce anywhere between 2,000 and 2,200 homes in the next 5 to 10 years, right?
Yep.
Over the course of time. But I don't see it happening in Fluvanna.
No.
Actually, and I'll share this with Jerry later, but we're going to do a show with the Palmyra district folks running in Fluvanna County that one is for housing and one is against, and we're going to have them sit in these seats and talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I have an out-of-state developer who tried to look at Fluvanna and decided not to go there.
For the political reasons.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And so I agree with you on that. What I'm thinking, though, is that there are smaller lot, like in Greene County, I believe the minimum lot size is 1.5 acres. I think that will help a little bit. We can see development of more rural lots.
So Greene County, I'll jump in here for a second. Greene County is a bit unique. Their
zoning.
If they're in a growth area,
Yeah.
it's only 10,000. It's 10,000 square foot lots are allowed by right.
If that has water sewer, I
It
think.
has to have water and sewer.
Yeah.
It's got to be in the growth
Yeah,
area.
I'm thinking, so I think, and then I think like what we talked about a little bit earlier before the show, I think that the city thing has many different issues.
You're talking upzoning?
Yeah.
Okay, I would love your take on upzoning in the city and the impact that's going to have on the city, Albemarle County, and the region.
So I brought an example of like before and after of what you could do on an acre lot that I have put on the market for sale.
Okay.
Personally, I think the focus of this upzoning is correct, but I think that it's execution, and I think that the result of it is going to be a bad thing overall. You know, like even though I'm a realtor, I'm supposed to like development. And so a good example of that is I have a duplex for sale on Washington, which is off of JPA. And I put it on the market, and the reason was because the owner, along with 8 other people, sued the city for that 600-unit building.
That's right.
Well, then I've had 4 contracts on it, and everybody's not wanting to buy it because it's right across the street from the only entrance. My opinion is somebody should buy it, because if they buy it now, they'll get through the all that building and stuff like that. Plus, this property has an extra cottage kind of sitting on it. You can get 3 units pretty easy. But anyway, long story short is, I think like this is an example, this Ridge Street property I have, which is an acre. Right now, under the current zoning, it's an R2 zoning. That was actually downzoned from an R3.
Yeah.
And during pandemic, those people came to me, and it was 10 rental units and over an acre of land. And I immediately noticed that the problem was you had 2 different buyers, right? So I had them go, and we did we redefined the lot boundary. We did a boundary adjustment, and we made the lots on the 8 rental units at 506, 508, and 506, 510. We made those be minimum lots, and then I immediately sold that myself first week into pandemic to a doctor from DC for $1.2 million, and then that left us with the residue, which was a whole acre. Like that's what it looks like now, and it's an acre with a duplex fronting on a ridge. So under the current zoning, Scott Collins helped me engineering, and he came up with 51 rental units or apartments we could build there. But with the new zoning proposal, you're talking a minimum lot size of 2,500 with up to 8 units. So that's not realistic.
So do you think?
But think about that.
So Jerry and I have a little bit of a bet. I'm taking it that I think this zoning rewrite will be done by the end of the year. I'm probably going to lose because it's a little bit close to the end of the year on that end of it. I'm a housing advocate. I think
me too.
Housing is good.
Yes, sir.
This plan is not going to give us what that plan says it's going to give us. We're not going to end up a lot. And I'll give you an example of that. I was texting Neil Williamson this morning. There's a whole implementation process of this that nobody's talking about.
Yeah.
So the land trust, which I chair,
Yes.
did 4 units on Nassau Street. We have $18,000 sitting in a bond that we've been trying to get back for 4 years.
Oh, my Lord.
And every time we try to get it back, we have to do more engineering for it. So we've actually got to the point is to keep the $18,000 because it's costing me more money.
Right, who cares?
To get it, keep the $18,000 and we're moving on. But a land trust, an affordable housing land trust provider, we can't get $18,000. It's actually almost $20,000 back, which would be huge for us, right? We could do huge things with that. So there's a whole part of this that nobody's really thinking through, and it's going to be a very slow process.
I agree. And even like this property, my client and I went down to the city, and he at one point in the past was a mayor of Charlottesville. So he's connected somewhat. We went to the city, and we were going to apply for a rezoning, and we went down there, so we're R2. If we go R3, we get higher density. Higher density, that'd be easier to get, especially if we did something that was sort of in the same character as the neighborhood. And they were like, well, you can put that in right now. But so what do we do? Do we apply under the current zoning? And what happens with that? And then, or do we apply with the future zoning? So they're even creating a problem right now they're going to create an extra backlog, because what do you do? What do you
Plus
apply
the
for?
debt service, the carrying costs.
Thank you.
And if you read Neil Williamson's writings that he just put out today, there's $1 million penalty that's going to be paid if it's not affordable housing. So that's just not going to happen.
No.
Or eventually, the unit's going to be at such a price that they can absorb, just like we can absorb the 20.
Yes.
They're going to absorb the $1 million, and it's just going to get passed
Well, if
along
it helps
to
you,
them.
we'll carry some paper on that while you're getting it approved. And we'll
Are we doing a deal?
We'll participate in the application as a co-applicant.
Can we do that live? Are we allowed to do a deal live?
Let's do it.
Of course you can do a
I'm
deal
in it.
live.
I'm in.
Patricia Irby watching the program right now. She's a realtor. She wants to know from Tim and Keith, how does CAR count teams in sales volume versus solo agents?
Wow, that's a great question. I'll have to look.
The franchises do it different. Like when I was running Judy's, we would give awards for a team versus an agent.
Yeah, but I think the question is how does the
On the
statistical
20 million
work?
sales volume statistic you gave.
Yeah,
That's what she wants to know.
Yeah, I don't. I've moved on
I
to a
think
different.
that's still the team is considered an entity, just like a person.
Yeah, so I search it by agent within the MLS, so I'm thinking it's by agent, but it could be team.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
might
know.
be.
But
Yeah.
that's a great question, Patricia. I'll take a look at that.
Yes.
Questions are coming in fast and furious here for Tim. This one's from Grayson. Jerry, loving the show today. Please ask Mr. Carson his thoughts on the University of Virginia and what role they should play when it comes to the foundation, scooping up real estate, taking it off the tax rolls, and potentially creating an affordability issue here.
So that's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because on one hand, they're valuable to the community.
For the economy.
And on the other hand, I think the tax issue is a concern. Now, right now I have a property under contract off market. I'm representing the owner, and it's 9 rental units, all commercial, over towards the Berks Road area. And the good news is that UVA is going to improve it, and it didn't even make market. So I think that's a problem. I mean, I guess my question is, you'd have to have one of the PhDs or a PFA determine like what is the benefit of the income that comes in due to the university and all the things that they provide the community versus the loss of the tax base. I'm less concerned about the tax base personally. I also don't mind, people are going to hate me for this, but I'm also always been frustrated that a lot of the tax is put on the real estate backs of homeowners. And so I'm a little bit more open now to user taxes and things where people pay for what they use, even though I don't love taxes at all.
To
I don't
answer
love
the
taxes
question,
at all.
teams are considered as one.
That's what I thought.
Teams are considered one.
But do you want to
Patricia.
know so when I do this search, I do within the MLS, which includes both originating boards, Bright and CAR, right? If you pull out Bright, it looks a little different. I always do that because Bright's in that. Would you believe that 800, the top person or top seller is Bright Agents at $370 million? Then it drops to Greg is number 2, and Denise Remy, who we had the last Wednesday actually, is number 3 on the top 3. But top number 1 is Bright Agents.
I'm not surprised because we get so much people in from Northern Virginia.
Talk about that.
Well, it's been going on for years, and like I used to do a lot
It's really
of new
picked up of late.
construction in Greene
Because we're
County.
data sharing, that's why.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think so. I was on the board before we had the Bright integration, and I was a member of Bright when it was MRIS and CAR and Richmond. And then we had that sharing agreement, and then that went away when the CAR almost went with MRIS at the time, and I was on the board, and we didn't do it, and then. But ever since then, the markets have opened up, there's no boundaries. And so and I also think with the lack of inventory, agents are going way beyond their geographic area. My daughter in Norfolk she's married, she's going to buy a property. And I said, I could help you, but what I'd rather you do is pick an agent you like.
He
He repped his daughter in Richmond.
Right.
Well, Richmond's
It's
from
different.
from where I live.
Not far.
My
It's like
home
40
office,
minutes.
Right.
45 minutes. I
Yeah.
gotta go from door to door.
Yep.
But let's talk about the professionalism, right?
Yep.
If
I'm going to do a referral fee.
if I have somebody that's outside of my sphere of expertise, I just refer them out.
Right. And I'm going to be like that agent's best friend down there
and
with helping my daughter.
But you're seeing, I mean, I'm going to call it like it is, 836
Totally.
of the units sold, according to what I'm looking at,
From outside car.
is from they're bright agents, right? So, they could be actually living here and operating here, but they have a bright MLS designation.
Well, what are the odds of that?
I'm sorry?
What is the odds of that?
How's it what?
Of them living here?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm dealing with 2 deals right now.
Okay.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Right?
and it's been going on for a while. Like I have a variety of, all my listings are so crazy because I have like industrial land, and then I have development land, and I have businesses, and then I have duplexes, and then I have office building and other things that I do commercial leasing. And there's a huge portion of those people that are coming down for those things all the time. I mean, and it's frustrating to me because they're all messaging me, can I show it, can I show it, can I show it? I'm like, well, yeah, send me your real estate license and your business card, and how are you
We're
gonna-
required to do that by
Right,
state law,
right,
right?
right.
As long as you're a licensed agent in the state of Virginia,
Right.
and you can
Right.
demonstrate that,
Right,
we have to let them in.
right, yes. And-
Olga wants to know what's considered the average price for affordable housing now in this footprint.
Ooh.
I can offer this perspective, then I'll throw it to Tim and Keith. HUD, the average household income in Charlottesville, now Morrow County, and this footprint in this MSA is $123,300.
Yeah.
Household income average, according to HUD, $123,300.
I was
average.
at a CEO conference a couple of weeks ago speaking, and I was with some folks from Miami. When I told them that number, they just fell. They said, we're like at 90 something. So look, if I pull out Bright, the top sales team it goes Slater,
Greg Slater,
Remy, Lindsay, but they're in the 90s.
Denise Ramey.
90s, 80 transactions. If you add Bright in, that's that 800
Yeah.
elephant.
Yep.
Who's
That
third?
Would
Lindsay
be
Milby?
Lindsay, yeah. Which again, these are these team. Back
Right.
to that team
Right.
question.
Right.
Well,
On
I mean,
that-
Greg's got a great pipeline of new construction.
Yeah.
Greg is a huge new construction guy. You have like number 5 is Dan Conquest. Dan's a great guy, but
Yes,
most of that
he's
is
Ryan.
Ryan.
Well,
so-
that goes back to mentorship. When I came into business, they used to give out the $1 Million Awards, and I went to those meetings so I could identify which people was I likely to be able to model myself after.
the first $1 Million award. I got wow. How come my checkbook doesn't say that?
Well, that's when we changed it to the Honor Society, which I will say I'm proud of that. It's the Charlottesville Honor Society. Has gone 27 years. I have received that every year for 27 years.
Good for you, brother.
Congratulations.
Yes, me and Percy and I and Pat Whithelm and somebody. And
Those are
Woody Fincham jumping in, the appraiser. Realtors are required, he says, to be confident in the market that they serve.
Yep.
I deal with agents all the time, he says, that are coming from very far away and have zero knowledge of the market in which they are transacting. It's a very dangerous precedent.
So the only reason we took the time to work on the Richmond transaction is our youngest daughter is getting into business.
Right.
Right, and we're going to open up a little shop there. So we took about 6 months to understand the market and learn the market, and I spent a bunch of time over there. Otherwise, I would just refer it
right,
out.
that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, just refer it out. I'm not an expert in that market, and specifically, I mean, Richmond is. You think our market's nuts? Richmond, you go 2 blocks one way or the other, it's a whole different,
Crazy.
whole different world, a whole different. I think we lost 13 houses, and the one that we won, we were one of 20 offers, and that was a year ago.
Well, that's the other thing that's happening to me this year, which is okay. I'm moving a lot of stuff, but I've lost more deals than normal because things are more volatile. Back to the affordable housing. I don't know if I told you this, but January 1 of this year, HUD changed their HUD numbers for rentals, and they went up significantly.
Very much so.
So in the city of Charlottesville, I believe a 2-bedroom apartment is $1,400 a month under subsidized vouchers.
Please, I will tell you.
I think it's $1,295, $1,400, $16 something, and $1,800. So it's like, I think the 4-bedroom. Am I close?
No, keep on talking. I'm trying to find the data.
So I believe the 1-bedroom is a $1,295 or $1,275. That's what they pay on a voucher. And then the 2-bedroom is around $1,400, and then the 3-bedroom is around $1,600, and I believe the 4-bedroom is $1,800 and $1,900. Well, those went up. So
That's because the 123, 300. That's
Right.
about 10, 12 grand higher
Right.
than it was last year.
Woody Fincham says you're a fantastic guest, Tim Carson.
oh man, tell
I'm
them I
also
said
se-
thank you.
I'm also seeing this from Jennifer and Keswick. This guest knows his stuff. Jennifer sharing that on the show here. You feel you've done a fantastic job of diversifying your business and your revenue streams.
Yes, sir.
Some would say your business very vertically integrated. You're doing commercial, you're doing investment, you're doing development, you're doing off-market, you're doing residential, you're doing property management, you're doing consultation. Would you feel as confident in the market ahead if you were strictly a listing or buyer's agent?
I would, yes, because I think you're either a winner or a loser in this game. So, you know, I mean, when I started, and even recently, I would probably say 95% of agents fail in the first 5 years. So the answer is I would survive. And what I would do is I would spend prospecting. I prospect. That's what you have to do. You have to be out with the people. I mean, even if you're just going to go out and have a glass of wine and sit somewhere and get to know somebody, if you're joining clubs that you're in, you're at the gym. Like when I was even in better shape, Gold's Gym, I would never ask for a deal. I walked around for 10 years with a Century 21 water bottle. I know one year I made $40,000 from Gold's Gym, never asked for a deal. I used to walk through the gym, they eventually would be like, hey, there's a real estate guy. I'm like, I don't want to bother you, you're working out.
So many real estate agents don't get that simple thing of sending a card out.
Yep.
And you know, and we coach and mentor a bunch of folks.
Yes.
Well, I feel uncomfortable asking for business. You don't need to ask for business. Just be who you are. It'll come to you.
Well, also, if you learn how to, so it's really easy. Like you meet people, you greet them, you establish rapport, you find a common point to discuss, you gain their confidence, and then you let them know what you do. And then
you ready
eventually,
for these numbers, this is going to rock your world.
What?
2024 efficiency, 1392.
Okay.
1 bedroom, 1415.
Yep.
2 bedroom, 1678.
Yep. See, they just went up again.
3 bedroom, 2114. 4 bedroom, 2608. And 23. So these are now the numbers for next year, right? They already set them.
And that's the metropolitan. That's Albemarle, Green, Fluvanna, and the city.
So it's a 6 jurisdiction region that includes Fluvanna, Louisa, Nelson, Green. Help me out, Jerry. Albemarle and Charlottesville.
Okay.
23 efficiency was 1165, so that jumped from 1165 to 1300. 1 bedroom was 1172. That jumped from that to 1415. 2 bedroom 1400 to 1600. 3, I'm just rounding it a little bit.
No, that's right.
1700 to 2100, and 4 bedroom 21 to 600. So anywhere from $400 to $600
right
extra.
Yes. Yep.
What do you make of that? It ain't cheap to live here.
Well, I think it's good it's going up because as we all wanted to focus is affordable housing, and it's a burden for the people that
Why
are
that's important is now people qualify for these federal programs
That's right.
at this particular
Right.
point.
They still have to qualify for other standards, but it's easier to get them into an apartment.
So they answer the affordable housing thing because that's kind of a hat that I wear a little bit.
Yes, I
Dan
know you
Pettit
do.
says he'll see you later at ACAC 10.
Yes. I'm there every night.
So at today's interest, because I ran the numbers, at today's interest rates, in order to hit between 60 to 80% of AMI, so this is this 123 number we've been talking about, you cannot exceed a $200,000 purchase price. In order to stay within that 30 to 40% of your income range that you want to be in, closer to 30
Gross
is
income.
better on that. Most people are closer to 50
Right.
at this point. So try to find something for 200 grand.
Right.
Oh, 200 grand doesn't exist.
I feel you.
200. This
Yeah, so-
question's come in from Jason Howard on Rio Road for Tim Carson. Why has someone not tried to make the old Wild Wing Cafe space on West Main by the train station work? It's centrally located in town. It's right next to the train station and has parking. Please ask Tim Carson this question.
Well, I can tell you that when that first, I don't know if you remember the history of that, but it shut down one time and then it opened back up with their different partners. When it did shut down, I was working with Awful Arthurs. We were there the next day and we presented a letter of intent on that.
Was Alan Kajane the owner?
I can't remember who it was.
Because Alan owns it now.
Okay. Yeah, I think he was a minor owner or something.
Yeah, now
maybe?
he's majority.
Yeah. And so what happened is...
He watches and listens.
Yeah, so we went in at that time and we offered them exactly what they're asking. I'm trying to remember what it was a month, but it was pretty expensive. Plus, we were going to give them $250,000 for their stuff in their personal property, and then it didn't work out. But like, I think that a lot of these rates are so expensive. Like, it's the same reason that I go into Stonefield, and I'm so shocked that one of my favorite Italian restaurants is sitting there vacant. They're still probably paying
'cause it
rent on
costs so
that.
much. So let's-
Trevinia?
Right. Mhm.
Trevinia was
Yeah.
$28K a month rent.
Right.
That's
They're
what they
still
were
paying-
paying.
I'm sure they're still paying that on it. They just shut it down.
I would imagine they are.
It's cheaper to shut it down.
Thank you.
So let's talk about commercial because commercial is what you do. I do a little bit of it. How you seeing the current commercial market in Charlottesville, Albemarle?
Mm-hmm.
Is it getting soft? Is it growing? Give me a.
So I'm also kind of an oddball because I would say that there's a couple of brokers in town that I've always admired who I think I'm similar to. I hope that I'm not building myself up too much by naming their names, but people like Mike Peters and Roger Voisinay and Tim Michelle and different people, even Steve McLean. But what I'm seeing is that there's a huge shortage of commercial properties.
Roger's watching.
For users that are considered like a retail office site. Like, for example, I've got amazing activity right now on the old Segura site that I have on the market for lease. And I've had a hair salon look
Westfield
at it.
Road.
I had a photography studio look at it. I have like a national firm for, what do you call people that do eyeglasses, having a brain warp.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Optician.
Thank you.
course.
Eyeglass people.
Thank you. And
These things, right?
Right. So the places that are like strictly office spots, like, for example, Glenwood Station is sitting there, and a lot of those properties are like older and beat up. They're just sitting there. But then, like, I put a property on the market, the lower space at the Segura, gone in a day to a church. Then I had a garage next door, gone in 3 or 4 days for $6,000 a month.
To a church.
No, well, the space was to a church.
Got it.
The next one was a garage.
The garage, yep. And then I had people come into town, wanted to start a new therapy business, and I showed them a bunch of stuff, and I just signed a lease for them, a build-out at the Better Living Building. I've got a chiropractor looking. So these people that are like service industry or some type of business that want some visibility, so they want some type of a mixed-use location and a zoning that allows it. Now, the chiropractor wanted my Segura, but the Segura space zoning doesn't allow medical use.
So
Roger Voisinay says it's an honor to be compared to you.
Oh, my Lord.
He literally just put that in the feed.
You tell him that we have to drink some beer.
He will gladly do that. May it be a Labatt Blue from Roger Voisinay.
Anything
He's
Canadian.
watching the program right now. The Labatt Blue.
anything Canadian. So Jerry's got the real beat on the market. This executive suite.
I agree.
Is
I
literally
Always hesitant to talk about this.
I agree.
Where it's going, right?
Yeah.
But their Regional Housing Partnership did a roundtable or square table. I monitored it. We had about 21 of stakeholders in it working on developer incentives for Albemarle County. But one of the topics that came up, and I'd love to get your read on it, is to start looking at changing the commercial zoning, just like you talked about.
Yep.
This is low-hanging fruit.
It is.
That they can do to allow housing in it, to
Absolutely.
allow more mixed use in it, so if that happens, what projects that you have in that brain that would work perfectly?
Neil Williamson is a huge champion of converting commercial to residential.
Absolutely. Well, let's pick a neighborhood that I couldn't get a business in 2 years ago. How about like Albemarle Square?
There you go.
Okay, I didn't end up working with them ultimately because somebody on the board had a friend, but I wrote a letter of intent years ago for the autistic national, whatever it is, the autistic.
The Virginia Autism
to
Foundation.
go in there into the old library space, and the shopping center turned it down, and the anchor store didn't like it, and they're all sitting there vacant. Okay, I have a...
Well, that whole project, frankly,
Yeah.
needs to be erased.
Well, it does, but that's
And
an
then
idea
start
where
all
you
over
just
again.
go up top on that. But so you've also got, there's a building up on State Farm Boulevard that I had somebody wanted to go into, and we went to try to write a letter of intent. We were told that my client's not corporate, and they wouldn't consider it. So to answer your question, I think that I don't see many projects where you could immediately turn into housing like
Yeah,
they did
neither do I.
in the downtown
But they
Charleston.
should-
That's the problem with this idea.
But
They should change the zoning ordinance, so at least it's in the back pocket
Right.
to go ahead and do it.
well, can I give you a quick example? I'll tell you on another show or in the future, but I have this
Or
property.
something wet.
Yeah, so I have a property on the, in the Emmett Street corridor, which is 9 units. And the current use has some retail and service industries, and then there's a second floor on it that has a couple of businesses. That zoning there has a limit currently of 2 stories. The new zoning goes 6 stories. It also has 0 lot lines. It also has, the corner lot has, you can go 10 foot on the first story. And so that's what I see with some of the new zoning that would make a difference that might not be as much of an issue and not in my backyard. Like that is one particular site that when I tell you one day, you'll be like, oh, that doesn't hurt anybody. And it's only going to improve that corridor. It's a rundown, beat up structures. And so I think some of that is what needs, I think the mixed use areas is the key.
So where this all came from was there was Stanley Martin Homes, one of the great sponsors of the show, was at the table doing that in Scott's Addition in Richmond.
That's one of my favorite places.
Right.
My daughter went to
breweries
VCU.
there.
I used to go there all the time.
Which is exactly
one.
what they did.
Mhm.
They it was more industrial over
Yes.
there than
Yep.
it was commercial.
Yep.
But they retooled their zoning ordinances to allow it to happen. And I was just there last weekend because our daughter's right next to it.
Yeah.
I was just for the heck of it.
It's so vibrant.
No, I for the heck of it. I said, hey, let's take a look at a one-bedroom condo over there. You know how much it's going to cost you a one-bedroom condo over there?
One bedroom condo in Scott's
no
Addition,
idea.
what, 400 plus?
Double that.
800 for a one bedroom, brand new?
Plus brand new building. Plus that, but got some great breweries within
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Place is fantastic.
It's a great place. So I think, I don't think there's a solution to so that's the thing that I'm excited about is, I don't know if you mind me mentioning it. but
Please.
The Charlottesville Foundation, the CAR Foundation was just created. And I'm on the board of that. And that to me will make a very minor, small impact, but eventually I think it will make more because that is, the main purpose of that is affordable housing and other stuff. And I'm on the board with Michael Guthrie and some other people that are pretty.
Greg's on it.
Greg's on it. Greg's the vice chair, along with like Rachel
Guthrie's
Burns,
watching.
Peter McFerrin, Jenny Barefoot, and Crystal Harris and Mary Catherine King. But
That has an opportunity
it does.
to make a huge impact. It's a little slow start,
It
right?
will- yeah, but it's good it's slow because, well, if I could give you a 30-second background on that,
Please,
what I'm
please.
so excited about or what I have such heart and love of this is my second board meeting back in 20-some years ago, I was on the board of directors, and Jeff Gaffney was the president of CAR, and Ben
He's
Downer
watching.
was the former chair president. And so, and on that board were people like Ray Cadell and I, and
He's
Robert
watching.
Ramsey, and and Jimmy Duncan, I believe. And I was sitting there in my second meeting, and you know, I'm not a real bright guy, I don't guess, but I was sitting in there, and we had just done the budgetary review, and we determined that we had a excess funds and profit at CAR that year. And you know, CAR doesn't operate as a nonprofit, but it operates to try to be kind of a break even, so we don't have to raise dues. And so I'm sitting there going like, well, we got $100,000 left over.
Let's
and
do something.
You know, it's the middle of the year, and I'm listening to that, and you know, I'm trying to learn how to be I always argue with CAR. I'm like, I think you're already a leader. They don't make them. They just teach you how to be a better one. So I was already trying to sit in there and learn stuff, but I was sitting there, and then Benton and Jeff brought in a idea, and it was, we want to endorse a workforce housing fund. And they brought in $13,000 in money that was donated to CAR by the widow of David Rothwell for educating realtors' children. And they came in and donated, they wanted us to approve it. So I was sitting there listening to this, and I'm like, this is a great idea. And I was like, I have a question. I said, I'm just a country boy, but I love the idea, but isn't this like pissing on a fire? And Ray Cadell's like, what did he say? Pissing on a fire? And he's over there writing this down. What did you say? And I'm like, yeah.
He wanted to steal it.
Yeah, and I was like, because this isn't going to help anything. And I'd like to know, like, why we're going to, this is a great idea. And if obviously we have to do this, but like, how much money can we spend without a membership vote? They're like $50,000. I'm like, you just told us we have money. I said, I make a motion, we donate another $35,000, we start the fund with the 35 to 12, and we do the fund. It was like anonymous, you know, everybody, not anonymous, Unanimous, thank you. Yeah, I always get those words confused. But anyway.
That's my job. You can't take my job.
This guy's great.
Cannot take my job.
So anyway.
My job is to create new words. Do not take it.
Well, that's okay. We'll have a few beers. Or just hit your finger with a hammer, you'll get some new words. But long story short is.
I can assure you they won't be new for me.
Thank you. So that fund was started, and I was so proud of Jeff and Benton to start that and the board to do it. But then where that started was then the Realtors Association did 3 or 4 years of fundraising, and that grew to over $500,000.
That's great.
And in the first 5 years or
Then
something.
we ended up giving it to PHA.
Right, but we did, it was for policemen, firemen, nurses, and teachers. So we did put 50, 60 in there. Well, then about 3 or 4 years ago, I was asked to go back and be on a group to rediscover this, and we wanted to figure out how to sunset the fund and do all that. So we came up with some ideas on how to get people to pay them back. We offered it, because there was no way to pay them back. So we changed our plan, we went to PHH, and we solved and we made incentives to pay those loans back. Because at that time, we had loaned out all the money we raised, and they were on mortgage loans on properties. Long story short, now those people are paying them back. So we now have $200,000-300,000 maybe in our account, and we're going to have more paid back. And so this is a really great opportunity for us to begin fundraising to really get some money in hand.
So let me add to how heavy of a lift this is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think an entry-level purchase for a townhome is right now?
Oh, gosh.
350,
I was going to
400?
say 400.
Brand new?
400.
Yeah.
So if my workforce, your cops, your firemen, this is the 60 to 80% AMI, right? This is not Section 8 or anything. This is
right.
This is workforce thing. Somebody needs to come up with $200,000 because they only can hit that 200,000 for it. So you have what, 300? So in reality, you can only impact one person.
Yeah, right.
So we've got to take that 300
Yep.
and turn it into 30 million.
Yep.
Then we can make a difference. And this is just a money math problem, and I'm just going to say this publicly. I'm probably going to get myself into trouble. We live in probably one of the richest areas in the state.
We do.
And
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and why, in
Definitely.
God's holy name, we can't raise that kind of money?
Right.
Maggie Walker in Richmond, the only two land trusts in the state of Virginia, it's the Piedmont Community Land Trust and Maggie Walker, in one day raised $5 million.
Good grief. Good grief.
Knocked on a couple of doors,
Yeah.
raised $5 million.
Yeah.
One day.
Well, it seems like it's doable. You know, the other thing, though, that I liked about this foundation, the other part of this where it was created, you were on the board for a while. And being on the board of directors at CAR, you know, you're presented all the time by people requesting donations for all kinds of things. So it was also thought that this might be a source to help CAR focus on the different charitable activities like we did homes. What was the senior
So
house?
disbursement of funds from an organization like that should not be done at the board level. It should be a separate entity, which is what you guys created.
That's right.
That's the entity. The board feeds you capital.
Right.
Then you decide where it goes.
Right.
That's how the format should
That's
work.
correct. And so this is a newly created
So let me give you the
foundation.
address for the land trust.
Please do that. So I think that this is brand new. We just finished 6 months of meetings creating it. We've got some money coming in from payback of loans. And so, you know, I think the ideal situation there is, you know, the primary focus of that is the number one goal of this foundation is to advance the creation of affordable homes in the greater area.
So here's an opportunity for you, sir.
That's why I'm here.
I'm going to invite you to the next Regional Housing Partnership meeting because what we talked about was trying to create a fund. And what happens is folks who want to donate money don't want to donate to a government, but they'll donate to a foundation.
Yes, sir.
Right, because you're a nonprofit,
Yep,
right?
that's
So
correct.
I donate X amount of dollars, I get
Right.
to write it off, it solves a problem.
Right.
So we're going to invite you to come talk to us and give us a pitch.
Yeah, Michael
So-
Guthrie and I are on the project team for fundraising. So
Good.
we invite Michael too, because I think a lot of him.
Questions coming in for you. You got 5 elected officials watching you guys on the show right now. What's the future of CAR's Hillsdale Conference Center?
I think it's going to be fine. We're doing some studies over there. This was a good year for us to use as a conference center, and I was on the board back when we made the decision to use that more because we were then paying for meeting spaces and all that. I think that the primary focus of that is for the realtors. But I do think that it's been an amazing, like Real Estate 3, right? Especially now when we had 10 offices when I came over and we have 2 now. We loved being able to use CAR and go in and pay for a space and have a meeting. Everybody knows where it is. You can park, events that are there. And so I think it's only going to increase its value both to our association and to the community.
I haven't been on the board in a while, I haven't looked at some numbers in a while, but it's going to take a while before it balances.
Well, this year's been pretty good.
But
so
it hasn't.
far.
It hasn't.
No. Well, and I actually was.
Has it balanced ever?
Well, the problem is it came
Pandemic.
on just before
Sure.
COVID. So.
So my big thing when I was on the board, even when I was on the board with Ray Cadell and them, my second meeting, I told them, you don't want me on the board because I'm most people's favorite asshole. because I'm going to speak my mind. And so I
love those kind of people.
I usually laugh when I'm doing it.
Tell me exactly how you feel.
Those are the best kind of people to do business with.
So, and I've been compared to the 13th juror or whatever, but I questioned the building that big conference center without more parking. But at the time, they were also going to build a motel or hotel, not a motel, next door to the conference center. So that's one thing we're looking at right now is how to try to get a little more parking on site, a little bit more parking. Also, one of the things we could do is if we build a wall in there, when you come in the main door where all the conference areas, there's a place where you can just build one wall for a couple grand and you could completely shut off cars, offices, and then you could use it easier nights and weekends, and you can, because there's not many places
because
to
you got
rent.
to park at Food Lion now if you got
way too many people,
Yeah.
right?
And it
You're
doesn't
talking
take
like
much.
reception, wedding
Yes.
reception is
Yeah.
what they're talking about.
Yes.
Because they're trying to rent it out for that.
Yep.
Well,
You got to cringe over there for that, Keith.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Wedding reception,
yeah.
but
It's happened. I've been to receptions there.
I was on the
Parking.
project team for that. Parking is the big issue.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be quite that big, but now that it's done, what I like is that we're using it. We're not spending money on our budget
So look,
The follow-up question
for other meeting spaces.
on this topic has been, should this center be sold? You guys are in the business of selling stuff.
Right now, there's no reason to sell it because the leaders at Carr have been very careful and conservative over the last 15 years to make sure that our association is protected financially without raising dues to a high level. And the big issue, if you want to talk about the history, is that back 20 years ago, there was a big worry about the income stream of the MLS being gone, which it almost happened when the MRIS wanted to buy us. And I will just make this comment, like I was the one that fought and argued during a board meeting that I didn't think we should join MRIS. And
it's funny how you landed exactly where you.
And I asked for financials and things that I wasn't getting. And when I demanded them later on, somebody asked me if I had emotional problems. I'm like, yeah, I do. I want financials. I get emotional when I want financials. And so as it turned out, we didn't do that. And that's good because if we had done that, what would have happened is the MLS in Charlottesville, we're kind of its own little cliquish market. And, and so we can have our own MLS here. And because we have the sharing agreement with Bright, it allows us, I wish we could get a sharing agreement with Richmond and Lynchburg. That's what we really need.
I think ultimately that's where our industry is going.
I agree.
Right? Our industry is going.
Isn't that called Zillow?
Well,
Zillow's not that accurate. Though.
That's exactly right.
Isn't
I
that
can tell
called
you the
Realtor.com?
Yeah, you know the history there, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was on the board when Zillow had to come to us directly to get a feed.
Yeah.
You guys gave that away.
Well, NAR gave that away, not us.
NAR did.
But I think
That's like the news industry giving away the news for free in the beginning and then trying to make it a paywall now.
Totally.
So I think you're going to see these large regional MLSs, and they're going to be teaming up. So Bright pretty much has got the United States at this point.
Right.
And we're kind of in the middle donut hole in it. And you're going to start seeing a bunch of data sharing, I think, happening because that's just the way the nature of the business is going to go, is my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Well, Fincham said we had my grandson's first birthday at the Hillsdale Conference Center.
Yeah.
And it worked great.
Well, going back to the commercial thing, this ties into that. So the commercial thing is even more segmented or segregated or whatever the word is because there is not one source for commercial. So the problem is and actually I will tell you that last year I was really proud. Management Services and those guys came to me and said, hey Tim, you're one of the top dogs in selling rental property and we want to get rid of some smaller units. So I'm like, oh, okay. I'm thinking it's like a duplex. No, I got 11 unit and something else and sold those. But what they liked about me is that I belong to everything. So I'm already paying. So for the consumers out there, they might not realize it, but the Realtors Association has an MLS that only has residential land, rentals, and multifamily. And multifamily is defined under 4 units.
So you got LoopNet, you got
Catalyst.
Yeah.
So you got Catalyst as a local MLS, but then Catalyst doesn't have. So then the regular MLS doesn't have commercial leasing, and then Catalyst doesn't have like little duplexes.
Such a mess.
So then then I belong to LoopNet. So then I also belong to Crexy.
Yep.
And
Me too on both.
And then when I just listed this land in Greene County, and I was proud, I beat several other brokers. It's 70 acres zoned industrial and B3, right next to the industrial park. I had to actually do this thing about driving around, and then I had to go find all these comps, and there was no way to get the data. I had to like take an Excel sheet and enter all the data in manually and do all my averages and come up with a price per acre.
You know, if we weren't so busy here and we have the skill set to do it, I would build a commercial infrastructure where the listings are unified in one space. I would do it and I would focus only on Central Virginia.
Well,
because when I'm going and sourcing all this stuff, either for clients, myself, or whatever, it's a pain in the ass.
You feel my pain.
It's a pain in the ass.
You feel my pain.
Yeah, it's clunky, it's splintered.
And there's a second part to that, so you're 100% right. I belong to all of those also.
I know you do.
But the other difference is that, you know, the ones that are part of CAR, they're real estate, they're realtors, right? These other
I was
ones
just going to say that.
are not.
Well, and take someone like, you know, and I love John Pritzoff watches the program. I see him all the time. I love JP. I mean,
rock star.
Tallheimer silos a lot of their listings
And
on the
Colliers.
on their respective websites.
Right.
And they're
I keep
not
it-
on the other
So,
ones.
No,
but the
that's
difference
right.
on the commercial thing, which is the big difference is, it's very much so an interpersonal business.
It is.
I've got to reach out to you and say, look,
do.
I've got
The commercial thing is run by like, what, 8 people?
Probably. Yeah. And then there's the people that, like Roger and I and other
Yeah.
people, Mike Peters.
I dabble in it.
Yeah.
But you pick up the phone, right? You know, hey, I've got a piece of property out in Fulana
Yes.
County that's a gas station.
You do.
I need a client.
Yep.
Right? What do you got?
Yep.
And you know, that's a little old school, right?
It is.
It's a little old school how real
It
estate
is.
overall used to be done instead
Totally.
of on this. So that part of it I kind of like. But if you want to source data to help a client, it's a pain
Well, I
in the
would
butt.
say that part of this, though, is what makes the realtor more valuable.
Oh, and especially in commercial.
Yeah.
Commercial investment, too.
Yeah.
And, you know, like investment is crazy because very few people have any idea what an internal rate of return is or a cap rate
yeah.
or anything like that.
Dude, I bet you if you polled 100 people on Market Street or on the downtown mall right now and you asked them to explain cap rate to you, 4 or 5 could get it right.
Well, and on top of that, like I've developed my own little formula over the years. I remember one time Judy had a Remax training session, and they were in there for hours studying rental properties. And I walked in there, I'm like, "How much is the rent on that?" And I went, "Boop boop boop. Oh, it's worth this much." And they were like, "Damn it, Tim."
Dude, I've had brokers straight up tell me, say, cap rate is a worthless statistic, and I just laughed.
Well,
They literally have told me that.
no, well, I think
Brokers.
cap rate is
So let's take a moment.
Cap rate's
for
good
those
be-
who do not know what a cap rate is and explain the cap rate.
It's the net operating income, and there's a rate of return that you would like to achieve, and when you work that formula, it gives you a value.
And the rule of thumb is
So real estate value-
7%.
5 to 7.
Five-
I think 5 to 7.
5 to 7.
I think 7 you're not going to get right now.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I
Perfect
usually,
world is 7. 5 is
when
manageable.
I went and did the pricing analysis on several 10, 15 unit multifamilies, because it's also different, because if you're talking about a really big commercial property, the cap rate probably is a good way to look at it, because a lot of those are triple net leases. And so the income is coming in as just income.
I'm with Jerry on this. Cap rate is always an important thing.
I agree. But the cap rates are not as important in residential multifamily.
I mean, there's a
that's
reason
the
why
problem.
MBAs focus on this
Thank you.
cap rate.
But in residential
First thing I
rentals,
focus on is
I
the cap
prefer a
rate.
cash on cash. What I want to see is will
Okay,
the
yeah.
property pay for itself, and then will it leave a little bit left over, return on your initial investment?
Unless you've got a buyer that wants to park money for 1031 that
Right.
don't really care
They
too
don't
much
care.
about the
You
cash
got a
rate.
dozen comments on the feed to bring Carson back to the show. At least a dozen comments of 13 different people, literally all over social, saying bring Carson back.
Oh, I'm so honored. Thank you, man.
Will.
I sincerely mean that. Closing thoughts for everybody. We're 11:30 here. Anywhere you want to go, closing thoughts.
The only thing I would say is that what you're doing here is really powerful, and I appreciate it. And, you know, it's hard with all the information out there to get some real information, and I love how objective you are, and I appreciate the show. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Keith Smith.
We're coming up on 550, us together, 550 shows. Thank you. You are welcome back. We just
Yeah.
got to map it in, and we'll get it done, and maybe we'll fill a fourth seat, and we'll go have a lot of. We'll see if somebody that wants to join us, and we'll go back and forth and do a little bit of chatting. But thank you for the kind words, because you got me to stutter a little bit, which is difficult for me to. It's hard for me to look at this. I'm stuttering. Save me, Jerry. Get me off of the set here.
Keith Smith, guys.
Thank
Real
you.
Talk with Keith Smith. Archived online at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Michael Guthrie says Mozzie Vogler puts out a nice weekly real estate data report that he checks out. Michael Guthrie, you're welcome
Thank
to
you,
the
Michael.
show anytime as well. Judah Wickower, the man behind the audio and visual. Thank you to Judah Wickower. Tim Carson, A-plus people. Keith Smith, A-plus people. The I Love CVille show is up in 57 minutes. Thank you kindly for joining us on a Wednesday. Take care.
Thanks for the save, Jerry.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.